In this modern world of ours, one thing we seem more and more addicted to is plain speaking. Politicians are happy to waffle, but interviewers will have none of it. Business leaders are given to obfuscation, but investors and employees are not fooled. Even preachers in love with hyperbole are taken to task for not giving their message straight. This is probably not surprising in Scotland, at least, where up until recently an oft-read theological book was entitled Plain Mr Knox. So saying all that, why do we still revere Christ's parables? More plainly, what was his method in using story? Well, of course, he was wanting to express almost inexpressible ideas in a consumer product. He also wanted his lessons to be memorable, and certainly his parables achieved both of these. Yet I would hazard another reason for his use of fictional narrative, and it was he wanted to create works of art. Let me explain. Firstly, a great work of art should make us think. Now this does not detract from the expertly executed watercolour of flowers. Such a picture would make us think about the beauty of God's creation. But in the end, a true piece of artistic endeavour needs to provoke us, to scratch our heads and ask questions. Take that famous, indeed infamous, winner of the Turner Prize. It was of an unmade bed by Tracey Emin. People shouted in annoyance, "Is this art? Or is it rubbish?" And there is your answer. It caused us to ask questions. Take today's parable of the sower as an example. Let me read you a portion now. The same day Jesus went out of the house and sat by the lake. Such large crowds gathered around him that he got into a boat and sat in it, while all the people stood on the shore. Then he told them many things in parables, saying, a farmer went out to sow his seed. As he was scattering the seed, some fell along the path, and the birds came and ate it up. Some fell on rocky places where it did not have much soil. It sprang up quickly because the soil was shallow, but when the sun came, the plants were scorched and they withered because they had no root. Other seed fell among thorns, which grew up and choked the plants. Still other seed fell on good soil, where it produced a crop 100, 60 or 30 times what was sown. Whoever has ears, let them hear. Well, when he was finished speaking, his listeners were saying, "Is this teaching? And if so, what does it mean?" And with those responses then, Christ's first objective as an artist was achieved. As we are not first century Palestinian Jews, we are left with different questions, however. We may query what seeds from our life experiences could we sow? Where should we sow them? How best to nurture them? Let us then do the least popular activity in this information overloaded world, and that is to think deeply and with persistence. In a nutshell, may the first seed sown by this parable be to resist knowing a lot, yet understanding little. The next attribute of a great work of art is to evoke an emotional response. Now that may have been anger, as in the Tracey Emin offering. It might be wonder, as in the works of Michelangelo, or even disgust at the equally controversial piece by Damien Hirst of a cow and a calf dissected and pickled. Jesus too wanted his parables to raise powerful emotions, even hackles. Some would have seen an insult in the Good Samaritan. Many will find encouragement in the parable of the sower, for it suggests that the sowing of our own seeds of faith is not hard. It suggests we need only share small things. Above these, it even prompts the emotion of wantonness, for we should not worry whether our efforts will have an effect, or upon whom. We should scatter our works without concern how they will be received. Instead, we need to give in to the emotion of generosity by showering our words of wisdom, faith and concern, and leave them to germinate. When I was living in London, I regularly visited the Tate Gallery, which is close to my flat. Now it has a huge collection of Turners. but the one painting that always attracted me was the one by a little-known early 20th century artist called Mark Gertler. Painted in 1916 and during the First World War, it depicts a sailor, soldiers and civilians on a merry-go-round. This provocative image, described by D.H. Lawrence as the best modern picture ever painted, causes us to ask questions of its meaning to ourselves. It causes us the emotions of more than curiosity, but an uncertainty in our view of the world and its conflicts. But it also, like the parable of the sower, provokes us with another question. Well, if that's what you think and feel, what are you going to do about it? Therefore, if we agree that Christ has something profoundly important to say in his parables, then we too have something crucial to say to our generation. We too are called to be sowers and harvesters here in our community. We are enticed into doing more than just talking. In fact, we are inspired to make our lives into a parable. But if we see the art in Jesus' words as beautiful as an old master, how can we not paint a better world? How can we hold back from drawing up a wondrous masterpiece? How indeed can we not sow with Christ in a field in God's landscape? Now there is a question for you. Proof indeed, we have started on a fresh and plain canvas.